It is a widely known fact that the majority of men have watched porn at least once in their life. And with that being true, that just opens up the door for those men getting addicted to it. And so that door opens, and a lot of men unfortunately fall into this trap. It might happen to you, and it's certainly happened to me, where it starts off as a harmless and fun habit that turns into every single day, that then turns into multiple times a day. And before you know it, you're wasting hours of your day absolutely fucking up your mind and completely just crushing and killing your soul. And because I went through that awful experience myself, I have put together a step-by-step guide on quitting porn and masturbation completely. And before I actually get into the step-by-step guide, you need to understand that this will take a lot of discipline. And not only that, you will also have to go through so much hardship, through the frustration and disappointment that you're going to feel for yourself for when you relapse. Because yes, of course, all of us want to quit porn immediately and never look back, but being realistic, it won't happen first time, and you shouldn't feel down about that. And I also want to say, so that you fully understand, that the goal isn't to just stop doing this bad habit. Yes, we want to achieve that, but the big goal that we want to achieve is to change your identity. Because if you see yourself as a man who's addicted to porn, what are you going to do when you're bored, or when you're stressed, or when the thought of it keeps going around you in your mind? It's the same way that an alcoholic who doesn't drink for a week is going to go back because he sees himself as an alcoholic, and what alcoholics do is drink alcohol. So merely taking out the habit is completely not sufficient, because you'll just go back to what your identity calls for. And so all of the steps in this entire guide aren't only to change the habit, it's to change your routine, your schedule and your identity, so that you not only stop jerking off and watching porn, but also never go back to it, because that's not who you are. So how does it occur when you do a bad action and then it's enjoyable and then you keep doing it and it turns into a habit? So all that habit consists of is trigger, action and reward. And with understanding that, any habit does become so much more simple, because you know not to do these bad habits, but you find yourself keep getting sucked into them. And so of course the most sensible direction to take with the understanding of how habits work is to just not let the trigger occur. Because if you don't change your schedule and you just keep going about your day and the trigger occurs, you will only have to fight an uphill battle. And it'll just be much more difficult than it needs to be. And so something that triggers you to want to do something could be a lot of things, like time of day, the device that you're using, how you're feeling specifically, or the routine or schedule that you're in. And so of course, just remove yourself from the trigger. If you always jerk off first thing in the morning, for example, find yourself a really strong reason to get out of bed first thing. Or if it's the middle of the day after you get home from school or from work, make sure you do something in that time slot so that you're occupied and you don't even have the energy to think about watching porn. If it's a certain device that you always watch porn on, then of course it makes sense to just not use that device at all if possible. And so if you always end up watching porn on your phone, use your phone as little as possible, and don't cope saying that you need to check your emails, you need to reply to messages, oh I just need to look this thing up, oh it's okay if I look up pictures of women who aren't actually naked, because that's not sexual and I'm not going to jerk off to that. But then you can go do that, and then you're going to want more, and then more and more, and before you know it, you've jerked off. So absolutely no coping. If you don't need your phone or don't need the device that you usually jerk off on, don't use it. And the case may be for some people, including myself, is that if I usually jerked off on the device that I work on, then it gets difficult because I need to work, but I don't want to jerk off, so I can't just completely eliminate my laptop. And so in that case, I should only use my laptop for the bare minimum by only doing the work and then not using it at all. If it's a certain way that you're feeling that causes you to go jerk off, then of course try your best to not get into that feeling. And if it's your schedule or routine that causes you to go watch porn, then of course switch up your routine and don't do the things in line with each other, or do them at separate times, or whatever it is that you need to change up so that you don't feel like watching porn after you do something. And no matter what your trigger is, or the specific problem that you may be having, you will have to fill the void of not watching porn with something. And you need to make sure that that something is a good habit. Because you cannot keep your schedule the same, not replace porn with another habit, and expect results. Because if you wake up every single morning and feel the urge to jerk off, and then you don't change anything, and then you keep waking up getting the urge to jerk off, jerk off, and then get frustrated that there's no results. If you jerk off every single night before you go to sleep, don't expect to be in the same routine with the same device, going to sleep at the same time, and getting a different result. You're going to relapse if that happens. And in any of those cases, you need to change something, whether it's time, whether it's what you do or what you need to do, or even how you feel during those times, so that your body isn't expecting to be watching porn. And so it won't be expecting to watch porn, and then you can fill that void with a good habit. Like reading, walking, going to the gym, exercising, it could be a lot of things. And so that is the very main point of how you can quit watching porn. But that doesn't stop there. Remember I said in the intro that you need to change your identity. That is going to come in very vital in the long-term success of you quitting porn and not relapsing. And if you're not even trying to change your identity of a man who doesn't jerk off, then you won't even get results for 2 days is my estimate. But if you're doing the correct thing and changing your identity and journaling and having positive thoughts about yourself, that you're this strong, masculine, productive man who doesn't watch porn and doesn't waste time on stupid little things like that, you're of course going to get results. But then that quiet little voice is going to pop up in your head, and it's going to say that, oh, you've been doing good, you can watch a little bit of porn. Or it may not even be masked like that. You may start to tell yourself, oh, look at a picture of a seductive woman, or a woman wearing really tight clothes and showing off her body. Sure, that's not porn, that'll be okay. And if you give in, that'll turn into more, because you've been jerking off for the majority of your life, and it means that seeing a clothed woman is never going to be enough to satisfy your needs. So you're going to look for more and more, and you're going to probably relapse. You absolutely cannot have a little bit of a bad habit and expect any good results. Imagine there was a heroin addict, and he shot up heroin every single day for 10 years. Then he realizes it's bad, starts to really knuckle down and starts to help himself. He changes his identity as a normal person who doesn't take drugs, but then he gets that voice in his head to tell him to take a bit of heroin. And if a former addict is going to take a little bit of the thing that he's addicted to, is he going to get long-term results? And you can make the argument that heroin is really serious, and whoever gets sucked into it understandably will relapse, and that's a completely different argument from relapsing on porn. And you would be right. Porn is minuscule compared to heroin, yet you get sucked into it. So it's not that porn is this overwhelmingly addictive thing. You're just weak. So many men have overcome porn, and you can see so many first-hand stories of this. And so, of course, in addition to getting yourself away from the triggers that cause you to watch porn, you change your identity to a man who is extremely productive, masculine, and virtuous. And then you change your behaviours to prove that new identity of yours. Because if you only change your behaviours, you're going to relapse because your identity is still of a man who watches porn. And if you only change your identity, you haven't put the systems in place to stop doing this bad habit. So you're going to relapse, and it's going to feel worse because you know you shouldn't be doing it, but you keep doing this bad habit. If you were to take the daily actions that you do every single day and gather men from all around the world who take the exact same actions, would you be proud to sit in a room full of men who take those actions? And if the answer is no, that of course shows a lot about what you do every single day. And if it so happens that you do unfortunately relapse, understand that that's normal. Like most men, you only realise that porn is bad after too many years of doing it. And so if you've been watching porn for 8 years, you won't be able to quit it and never look back in a week. There will be setbacks, but that number will depend on how driven you are and how disciplined you are. But if you do relapse, the way forward is to do a good action afterwards. And it's not an action to make you feel good. It's an action that is objectively good, that betters your life. Basically a delayed gratification activity, like doing some push-ups, going for a walk, doing some sort of exercise, or even drinking some water. Now, I did learn that from Andrew Huberman, and he says that the science behind it is that with a habit, there's a closed circuit. The trigger, action, and reward, they fire off specific neurons, and the more often that the neurons fire, the more easier it is to keep firing. And so there would be this closed circuit of neurons that keep firing, but if you do the trigger, action, and reward, and then do a good habit afterwards, it opens up the circuit and opens it up to it changing, so that you can either completely stop doing the bad habit or do something that takes its place. And so with that, that concludes my step-by-step guide on quitting porn and jerking off. And with the very last point, like I said in the intro as well, expect there to be hardships. And what I mean specifically is when your brain wants you to do something, but you don't do it, or do something completely different. So in this context, your brain is going to want you to watch porn, but you're not going to do that. You're going to overcome hardship and overcome what some people call a mental hurdle. And of course, the more mental hurdles that you overcome, the mentally tougher and more disciplined that you will become. It's the mind's version of doing the bench press. The more you do it, the easier it'll become because you'll become stronger. And then you'll only be able to overcome bigger mental hurdles. And you'll go from the man who couldn't even overcome the urge of watching porn every day to a man who can work 12 plus hours, even when he doesn't feel like it, because he can keep overcoming these mental hurdles, keep doing good for himself, and feel absolutely fantastic afterwards. And with that, that concludes this step-by-step guide on quitting porn and quitting jerking off. And if this video has helped you at all, make sure you subscribe because it really helps a lot. Put in enough time and attention because that will make anything into reality.